Where you're born and who you're born to doesn't necessarily mean how you end up. Your background shouldn't always be a barrier, and sometimes it could always be a launch pad. In this very first episode of the 8020 podcast, I discuss with Seun Adeola, the head of growth at Shara. We discuss on the topic, owning your competitive advantage. And we talk about how privilege, perspective can turn into your own superpower. So if you've ever wondered how where you're born sort of shapes where you can go and how to turn all of that into your competitive edge, let's get into this episode and tell me what you think at the end. Hi, Sean. It's good to have you here. I have been looking forward to this conversation because your story isn't just about growth marketing or startups. It's about intentionality, stewardship, and continuously showing up. Before we go deep, let's start on a light note. If someone only knew you from Twitter, what's the one thing they would totally miss about you in real life?
Yeah, from Twitter, it's easy to think, oh, this person is a chaotic person. This person is always so controversial, very serious person when it comes to like my work, my leisure, my fitness. I'm just a very serious and intentional person. And I love peace in real life.
That's a very, very strong point. I mean, and we can actually dive into it straight away, right? So, in terms of you talk about the seriousness, in terms of, and you also like in peace. Let's talk about the serious part of yourself. So, what do you do? And what does peace look like to you?
Okay. I'm in growth. My job is to drive commercial success for businesses. That's what I do. So it's a high pressure role. We always have targets. We always have the next thing to do. We always have another milestone to chase. So it's very high octane. Most of the time, I'm always chasing something. So when I'm not doing that, I want to relax. Right? One of the ways I do that is 4 times a week, I go to the gym and I just expend myself working. I get back home, have a cold shower, just enjoy some TV, and then scroll online to see what's going on. So yeah, between the chaos and the peace, I'm able to just find my perfect space where I can thrive and where I can also retire and just, take care of my plants. Because I have 19 plants actually.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
fun dad. That's interesting. That's interesting. So I guess like this is actually a very good segue for all the plant people to see that there's more to share than the tweets and the what you see out there. Essentially, he's a plant dad as well. So let's just get straight into that tweet. So the first tweet that you tweeted, the one that sparked the entire conversation around, I think it was the first tweet was really talking about when you graduated from Covenant University. So a lot of people might know this, but you graduated from Covenant University and you were sort of illustrating how people that went to the same school as you sort of got gifts at graduation, and that sort of went on. You had similar tweets to talk about, look, there is a 20% chance of anyone that is just starting from scratch to making it, and there is always that 80%, and you sort of buttressed on that point with a book, which I really like that as well, which shows on your part the intentionality to actually speak to the audience to say, look guys, there is more, you can do more. I'm not saying like your fate is over. So I just wanted you to sort of like shed light on that, because the way I see that conversation going, it has sort of gone haywire. People don't seem to get the point of that tweet, right? People don't get, like, we're not all handed the same spoon or the same sort of like life. I would say that it's pretty much about how you handle whatever is given to you. And I'll buttress that point, but I really wanted you to just shed light on tweet and what you were trying to, the message you were trying to pass with that.
Okay. It's an uncomfortable conversation to have with most people because um, there is this divide, invisible divide that goes rich or poor, right? But when you zoom in, you realize it's not really rich or poor. It's opportunities and then lack of opportunities. Because there are people who are not rich but have opportunities, right? And there are people who are maybe rich or former rich and then they no longer have opportunities. So what I was trying to say was that the, there is a configuration of a person that makes them more likely to succeed. The configuration being your educational background, from the primary school, secondary, university. It could also be where you were raised, what part of the world you were raised, part of the country you were raised. Right? If you look at Lagos, right, maybe you look at it where the kid from Ikoyi, Lagos, is more likely be few steps ahead than the kid from Bomosho in Oyo State. It's I didn't make wrong. Yeah. So I saw one side of be obsessed with outlier stories, saying, "Oh, I know some guy who was from Bomosho and then today is in Silicon Valley." Yes, that's an outlier story. But then there are for that one guy, so many guys that never made the trenches. Let me call it that. Right. So the first thing to know is to know that when you are born, handed a folder of opportunities, you might have 100, you might have two, right? Know your truth, then operate from that point. If you're from maybe you have just two opportunities, older, you know that I'm not that guy. I'm that person. My race, my story is different. What that guy is going to achieve in 3 years, 4 years. If I want to achieve the same in that, I'm going to do 3 times, 4 times over, right? So this, I think, was lost on people. They felt, oh, you're saying they're not going to make it. And they also tell that a rich person is bad, nepotism, right? But it's not. Just nobody choose. I mean, I didn't choose my parents. Woke up like so, right? So, but I've tried to make the best of my opportunity. And one of the best things that my parents would give me was send me to that's Covenant University. I didn't go to Harvard, I went to Covenant University. And by going there, I met a bunch of people who also went to some of the best secondary school country of them went to secondary school or school. Then just by my mind got things and my mind got elevated. And that's for me. Because when I'm now trying to compare, the standard is extremely high, right? Some of them went Harvard, some of them were LSE, Hall. I didn't go to any of these schools because that's the benchmark. So that's what I want to keep up with. By doing that, that makes me high. But when you look at the average baseline, I'm still far off from that because because of my because of my benchmark. Right. So my point in a nutshell that it's important to know where you are starting from, understand your strategic advantage, and leverage what you have. I'm not be shy about it. Embrace your privilege. Everybody doesn't need to have a grass to grace story or a rags to riches story, right? And if you don't have any form of it's it's not the end of the world. Actually build something. So I think that's my point. But and uh, I told you, told. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And I really like the point that you made there. And the point is essentially people being honest with themselves. How do I sort of hone into who I really am and sort of say, this is my person and this is where I sort of stand in society. This is my advantage. This is who I am trying to become. I find it to be very, very interesting when people do not necessarily tell themselves the truth. And I also find it interesting on the back of it, whereby people say, this is my truth. I'm just going to live in it. And I'm not going to explore to become better. There, you said, I went to certain universities and I met people that had gone to other universities that, in my opinion, were way better and way more exposed than the high school I went to. And sort of rubbing minds with these people elevated my mindset and helped us see a vision of what a life could be like. I think in generous, I think that, you know what, because this is how things started, I'm just gonna just lay low and just let things be that way. Your standpoint really resonates with me because, and I hope that resonates with the public viewers as well, because it's like, where do you start from honing that point of saying, this is my standpoint. What can I now do to make myself better based off of this? And I also find that it's very interesting because most of the people called Nepo babies they are trying to figure it out. Some of their best friends are just trying to put things together, or when they sort of like bring things together to work together, it's an explosion and it sort of just makes a lot of sense in terms of the work, the drive, and them being able to grow. And so it sort of leads me to my next question. What were some of the early signs that you found within yourself that have made you realize, okay, this is my edge? Beyond just the work that you do, when did you sort of realize, okay, this is my edge? Maybe communication or making friends or sort of being that person in the room that just makes everybody laugh is my edge. And so how when did you notice that and how did you hone that in who you are today?
I think it was. I think it was at my first job. It wasn't really a job, right? I I wanted to learn some marketing, and I couldn't get any job because I had no experience. So I went to an agency, and then I asked to see the HR, and for some reason they allowed me to see the HR manager, and because I dressed well, right? I wore like a TM shirt, I wore like a nice tie, I dressed really well, and she was like, "Yeah, young man, what can I do for you?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm here to get a job." She said, "We don't have any openings." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but I work for free." She looked at me. I was like, "Really? So how will you eat and transport yourself?" I was like, "Don't worry about that. I just want to work out to learn." And then she asked me to start. That's how I got my first graduate internship. And by the end of the first month, they started giving me a stipend to cover my lunch, my transport, my airtime and stuff like that. Because I just needed a legging. And when I got the legging, I was everybody's PA. You want to do some research, I'll do it for you. You want to do some. I was observing, I was learning. Till I was in a brainstorm session. My job was to take minutes. And then they were having a block. But because I've been learning, I just said something and everybody looked at me. That's the intern. And that was how I became I moved from being creative intern and being on the strategy team. It's just like that. So for me, I think my advantage was like my boldness, right? And how did I get boldness? When I was in uni, the things all like that, right? I had watched, seen people with just this no product, no prototype, just come into the room and just say things and just go for it and be really tenacious and convincing. And they got what they wanted. So I had that childlike naivety. I believe that if I did this thing, I'll get what I want. Right? And that's what I did. That was just how everything started. The MD wanted to see me and was like, who's this kid? Right. And I actually got a contract, like an actual contract after 3 months. That was good. And that was the beginning. So I think I'll call it, I don't know, it's a mix of childlike naivety, also courage.
My first actual job in Nigeria was a job where I actually sent an email, or I actually followed the founder or the co-founder on LinkedIn, and I sent him an email saying, look, I want to work for free. I've been learning solutions architecture for a minute now. However, I've not been able to deploy my skills. And so I think I did make a post about their company on LinkedIn. And he said, you know what, I'm currently in New York. I will send you a message when I get back to Lagos and we'll have a chat. Lo and behold, we had a good chat. And I thought, I'm here to work for free, bro. Just put me to work. And he said, I don't have a solutions architecture role for you, right? Because that's currently being handled by my CIO. However, what I can offer you today is sort of like a marketing role whereby you would do this for us and we would sort of continue to put you amongst the technology team because we know that that's what you want to learn. And I accepted the role with all my heart because one thing was for sure, I was getting into the door, right? I was getting into the door. I was able to have a chat with everyone in the technology team in terms of where I wanted to go. And so, like your own story, I sort of started, I was assisting in marketing, doing everything that they needed to do. And then I was also working as a scrum master for the technology team. And then at some point, I was elevated to being the person managing the focus group sessions. And from there, with my ideas and everything, I actually took initiative for myself. So I went to programs like EduBridge. I don't know if you've ever heard of EduBridge. EduBridge program, it's about like an 8-week program on the weekend. So it's on the Saturday and Sunday to learn things around consulting, or management consulting, investment banking, how to use Excel, PowerPoint. That school was essentially like a bridge between university and the work environment. So I did that. And then I went further forward to also do the product management course because I was already doing analytics, focus groups, and things of that nature. To be honest with you, like I grew from a point of view of I was, I wanted to work for free. They sort of said, you know what, we'll give you 50K. And I was like, cool, no worries. In 3 months, they raised me up to 100K. From when I did that and I went in to do my course, they were like, oh, you know what? We would raise you up to 200K. And this was all between 6 months. Like all of these increases happened between 6 months. And it's really about putting yourself out there and you having those conversations. The truth is, my background before then, I was working with a business and I was sort of just doing okay. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to do better and I'm going to try to chase my own dreams. And I think the reality is why we're all telling these stories is there is somebody out there probably thinking, these are the options I've been dealt with. And this is what my life looks like. Seun's life is that he went to Covenant. Tochi's life is that he's XYZ, right? Now, someone's probably thinking these guys had the opportunities. However, we both have similar stories whereby we actually did apply to jobs and we didn't know anyone's emails. We didn't know anyone. we actually just put ourselves out there, because we realize what's the worst that could happen. You tell me no. That's all. That's all you're gonna tell me, and that's all. Whoever died from embarrassment. It's like, so it's like you miss the shots that you don't take. So it's like really just taking those shots and actually putting yourself out there to say, you know what, what's out there for me. And the truth is, there's many people that are out there that are going to take you up on your opportunity, because the reality is everybody knows everyone starts from somewhere, except you're a fourth star. Everybody knows everyone starts from somewhere. And everyone actually knows, everyone with their head actually knows, you know, if this guy is hungry for this, then I can actually put this person to work. And you also know at the back of your mind, you know what, I'm learning here. One bit of I put my back into it, then I'll become so relevant and so good that these people will probably be like, look, I need to pay up this guy, even for the months whereby I wasn't paying this guy well. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that's essentially what has happened to me, and it also happened to you, right? So I'm going to move on really quickly. So ask questions about these strategic advantages that we speak about, right? And how do we sort of activate our edge? So currently, you're working as head of growth at Shara. So in your current work, what are some of those ways that you sort of use those advantages and you sort of continue to show up?
First, I would say that I try my best to be a mentor to my downline, right? I'm an open mentor. So some people latch onto me if they want to, and some don't, and that's fine. But all I just need is 25% of my team to latch onto me. And when I say latch onto me, is I want them to take up what I say and just try it. So I remember there was a time where I was always against anecdotes. People would come and say, "Oh, this is how this works." I'm like, "Where's the data to back this?" Right? Always follow data. Some people thought about it and started to follow the data. And of course, their output improved. They realized, oh my God, if I look at the data, I can see things other people cannot see. This is basic stuff. But it's basic stuff to you and I because we know. But to someone who does not know, it's so deep. It's charts, it's numbers, it's tables. Do you understand? So I try to inspire what I want to be replicated in people. I won't force it down the throat. So when I inspire it, people achieve some success. Other people see them achieve that success and then want to copy them. And then we just replicate in like a pyramid style. Right. So for my downline, that's how I work. Right. And then sometimes I'm just like, graduates, because that's just how it is. But it's more sensitive when you're dealing with like C-suites, right? You're dealing with the board, you're dealing with investors, right? Again, I'll go back to Shark Tank. That show changed my mindset. And I kind of understand that we all want different things. My downline want different things, my team want different things, my customers want different things, my senior leadership teams want different things, my investors want different things, and my board wants different things. So I deal with everybody on a case by case basis. I'm telling you what you need to know. I'm telling you what you need to know. I'm telling you what you need to know. And then I'm serving as a distribution board, disseminating what everyone. So in terms of how my skills come into play, I think I would say just understanding people from different walks of life. Because my customers are SMEs. Most of my customers are semi-literate, right? Semi-literate. It's a different language, a different way I interact with them. Because when I do that with my upline, my stakeholders. So just being able to switch time, being a dynamic person helps me just keep things stay afloat, and I keep my eye on the money. So I think that's what I say I'll do.
And, it's interesting that you say that being sort of like understanding people and where they come from and just being dynamic and being able to context switch at every point in time. Would you say that any bit of how you grew up sort of helps in that you can manage people and be very dynamic with different people? So you did highlight that there are semi-literate people, and then you have to context switch all the way 360 when you're speaking to your board or speaking to your C-suite members. Would you say that that's actually a very good competitive advantage whereby you had sort of like this upbringing that exposed you to this side of life, and you also went to Covenant University, you went to all of these places and you met these people, and it also exposed you to this side of life, and now it's now that melange of Seun that can now show up as someone that knows how to speak to these people and knows how to speak to these people, gives everyone the respect that they deserve, and they sort of get to love and show and see. Would you how would you
Yeah,
represent that?
I think one of the best things my parents did for me was they exposed me to everything, right? You have a good life. I went to a secondary school called Baptist Academy, and the school wasn't exactly, it wasn't the freshest of schools. There was a balance between rough and smooth, but I learned a lot there. And I remember I treated something like that one time. There was a holiday where my parents took me to a slum in Lagos Island, and I was there for my entire holiday. And I saw a different. I'm talking about multi-dimensional. But I was there. So I think just being experienced also really helped my own life, the downside, and even the up even family, friends, uncles, or even child friend, you know. Like, so one day, the dad has the boat in the child, right? And another day, me somewhere in the ocean talking to a customer, full time remember or transaction password. So it's interesting, and the more you kind of go to comfort zone and you mix with people, the more you actually learn about people, and it just does something to you. It makes you superhuman. And it's just like you have a Midas touch with them, and you understand every time. And for me, marketing and growth, it's important to understand every customer, understand their behavior, and understand the reasons to buy, the sentiments. So yeah, that I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, sure. And there's a point you made there where it's really having that Midas touch, right? Like everybody feels welcome and everyone feels loved. Like, and you're able to just have that dynamic nature whereby you see people from different walks of life. And so that sort of brings me to my next question. You being great at your job, right? So tell us about like your world. So what are those things that you've built? What are those things that you have led? What are those transformations that you have done that you're really proud of? And you can sort of like spotlight, this is what I've done. This is where I've carried these to. Because at the end of the day, there's some people watching here and they would be like, what can I really take from Cheryl? What can I is that what are those things that he has sort of done that sort of makes me think, oh, you know what? And
Right now, I'm doing and I've done. Right, I joined Sharp very early stage, with very little revenue. I'm talking about the loan book was probably worth around 40 million naira, right? For context, 40 million naira could be disbursed right now in maybe 30 minutes, right? But the entire loan book there, 40 million. So I was able to, I was able to stand up the entire grid team, build it, build cadence, build processing, you know, also work with tutorial teams to achieve product market fit for what we're doing. So if it's something I'm super proud of, it's the hardest thing I've done in my life, right? But I've done that. And then right now we are scaling up, and the young book is pretty impressive. we're looking at, I mean, I checked this morning, we're around maybe 110, right? So, yeah. And the interesting thing, what makes me of this, that we've done this without any marketing, right? No ad, social media, nothing. Just completely flying under the radar. Heroes. Actually, no partnerships. Also. So we've been organic under the radar. We've been trying to get work, get this done. So I think that's something I'm really proud of. Also the fact that I was able to identify high ceiling talents at the early stage. Some of them had no marketing or sales. Then I just saw a serious minded person. Hey, if you give me 2 years of your life, I'll train you, it'll be so good. Right? I was able to find people, right? So for every good person, like three bad new workouts, but I found good people. So that's for me, I think it's amazing. I think it's something that's one of my strengths. I mean, I'm very, I'm able to do things from scratch. I'm also able to like scale things. Before Shara, I also worked at, I was also part of the Nigeria. I think Nigeria was the six documents, no office, so brand. And I was, very important in building that brand in public actually. And one thing I do about doing whatever I'm into is that I make it a part of me. It's if you know me, you know that this is what I do. If you know me, you know this is the brand I'm currently nurturing at the moment. I did that and I was able to take Popo from nothing, zero, to one of the challenging brands in the football markets. Right? We were actually fastest growing in Africa, also top three fastest growing in the world as a band. Yeah. So I'm super proud of that. Then before then, I worked for the initial market, and I had a couple of successful campaigns. Did worked with the South African tourism, South African Airways, in improve give slow tourism to South Africa. Did the same with UAE, Emirates. Did the same with Kenya. Kenya Airways did the same with Tanzania, with Zanzibar, and also Zimbabwe. So also worked with Legend, was World Tourism Organization, with Council of Africa. So I was able to do on the, let's say, on the governance side with tourism ministers of lines, hotel chains, attract tourism to countries. But what people think is organic, just like everybody thinks South African, everybody gets to Zanzibar, was actually born out of campaigns conceived, as well as more of the people I worked with on the project. So just testing that um, acumen, that marketing, just in different fields. Done it in travel, done it in OEM, smartphone. I'm doing it in tech right now. Prior to that time, I've done it as an agency. For me, I think, and it all started a boy who worked into an agency without a job and worked out. That's where it started.
I love the way you wrap that up. It helps to curate my next set of questions because it all starts from one seed was planted, right? And that seed, like, just put yourself out there. My next question is that what would you say to anyone who is grinding at night without any social capital or financial leverage? How can they move smartly and not bitterly? And I ask this question with intentionality because I did see how that tweet sort of segued into people starting to try to bully other people that they don't know their backgrounds, right? And it's interesting that we've sort of touched on a few things, but time would not permit us into that. But really, it's like, what would you give advice to someone that probably doesn't have social capital, they don't have financial leverage, how can they sort of move smartly and not be conversations like this can sort of spiral and make people start to sort of think negatively as opposed to seeing the positive in these conversations.
Okay. I think the mindset is what needs healing first. Right. Anytime anybody comes to me and says, I want to do this, I always tell them, go and read Malcolm Gladwell Outliers, Theory of Success. That book, I just say it. No, I don't have the hard copy. Here's the PDF. Go and read it first. Right. I think it does something to your mind. It abuses your mind on how it is privilege, how you perceive worth and whatnot. It's first. So how you see, let me use the word money. Money is immoral, right? It takes the form of the holder. So you can buy malaria medicine with money. You can also buy a gun with money, right? You can pay for education with money. You can also pay for prostitution with money. It's money. It takes any form you want it to take. So the first thing is when a person looks at money, don't look at the dark side of it. Don't look at it as this is bad, this is demonic, this is evil. But you can get money without doing something, right? That's that abused mind needs to be renewed. You need to understand that it's money is neutral, right? You decide what it's going to be for you as a first. Second, you also need to understand that money responds to value, right? It's so if you want money, you need to be chasing value. You all know that person that's always chasing money at the goal. 200 million this year, 100 million this year, and they're just like running up and down. Then they get their hands into things they shouldn't get their hands into. So in that early stage of grind, in just on value, you need to be focused. Adding so much value to yourself can command whatever it's you truly desire, right? So in my own case, I understood that I couldn't get the value by the all free because the job I wanted in the company I wanted would not hire me because I had no experience. So I went there, I worked with, and I knew I wanted to moonlight, I wanted to get exposed. I used that leverage to get my second job. Because I was like, well, yeah, I worked at this company, what I did, this project, I worked on this project, and I got the job I wanted. So delayed gratification is something you get used to it. I tell people it's 4 years. You need to give 4 years out result. It might be faster. You might get your results in 6 months. You might get it in a year. But give 4 years. It's after 4 years. It doesn't work in 4 years then. But so far, every single person that's qualified always got their results in 4 years, before 4 years. So patience, right? I know there's a temptation to opt. If I hop from here to here now, 2x, I get 3x. But you're even without stocks. There is a point where you no longer, there's a point in your career where it's just not there, you need to go back and you have to go forward. So build substance, trust the process, and like that data. Trust the process, and most important, have the right mindset to work. Finally, just one more thing. A lot of people are obsessed with networking upwards. So I want to meet with Dangote, I want to meet with Adeola, I want to meet with. It's most likely not going to work. You need to network sideways. You need to network with Tunde, that is your friend, classmate from school. Yes, he might not give you any value. Tunde is going to be the co-founder of Dayo is going to be the VP of something. Chinedu is going to be the professor in some university. It's maybe UNN or in the USA. Those friends and colleagues at your level in a few years are going to be in position of the people you're trying to network. So play the long game with networking. Network side, network downward, right? Somebody driver has told me before, he wants to meet this guy, comes to this place at this time, he doesn't have friends there. And I did. And I met him. And I spoke to him. So network downwards. Let's say yeah, we just say, you know, the same way you would want to help us, you need to treat everybody that way. They are all important. So that's what I would say. But right now, when I look at the founder of this, that CEO of this, MD of that, CEO of this, they're all people that are friends, maybe acquaintances. We went to school, played on the Astro Talks together, we played FIFA together. Now, they're where they are today. Now, they are my network because they are one call away.
Are trying to network vertically and they're not looking horizontal. And I always say this because I teach as well. And I say this to my students to say, guys, you need to network with the people in your class today because the people you learn this with, they go on, fortune favors the brave. One of them, two of them, they sort of go on to become VP or whatever. And you now have that person in your contact list. The way you treat them today matters. So you're trying to network with me, bro. Like, not that I cannot help you, but I promise you, the people in your class are probably like the best people for you to grow with. And I think it's really playing that long game and being patient because it's like you need to be patient with life. Like nothing happens immediately. It's like you need time and chance happens, right? But it really happens with time. And like you said, it's like you know everyone right now that is probably like at that echelon of VP, C-suite because you've been 40 years in the game now. So it's like, oh, yeah, that's my guy. Yeah, that's my person. I can do this. I can do that. I can network either ways that I want to. And a very important point that you made is about networking downwards as well. And I remember a story about I don't know. Have you ever heard of Paul Getty? He's the owner of Getty Museums across the world. That one of the stories about Paul Getty is that he named one of the museum is in the southern part of Africa. People actually think he's the one that named the museum. The reality is it's actually his driver, or sorry, his photographer actually gave him the name for the museum. And people actually don't realize that people always think it's these guys that come up with these like breakthrough ideas and they don't realize it's the photographer, it's the driver, it's the person that you probably don't look at that comes up with all of these really innovative things in life today. People don't remember the photographer. Then Paul Getty told the story. That's why people actually know that it's not Paul Getty that did that. Do you see what I'm saying? So my point is the real people that might help you, that would actually give you the leg up in the room, might actually be the driver, the photographer, the person that you're looking at and you don't say hi to. And those are the people that you need to just be down to earth and have a chat with. Because I also noticed from your tweets, you did talk about how you had been trying to support students in senior secondary school, able to pay for their WIAC and NECO school fees. For people that do not know, WIAC and NECO is similar to what we have with IGCSEs and your SATs type of exams that sort of enables you to sort of grow from secondary school to tertiary institutions, right? And you were talking about how there are certain people in certain environments that do not have access to actually even pay for it, right? You talked about how you actually did it in the past using some of your earnings to support them. Why does this matter to you? And do you want to elaborate this point? And just sort of like equip us on how why you're thinking in this light.
Okay. So as a person, injustice is something that really annoys me, right? I'm the kind of person that if somebody wants to jump a queue, even though the person is not jumping right in front of me, I won't allow it, right? Unless it's an emergency or it's an elderly lady or pregnant person, a vulnerable person, really. So, and some of the injustice I see in my country, Nigeria, where I live is that everyone doesn't have equal access to primary needs, right? Um, food, shelter, clothing, education, and even freedom, right? Well, I said something earlier that my parents at some point made me go spend a holiday in the slum. So while I was in the slum, I saw things, right? I'm not even talking about the sanitation of the environment. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the fact that 10 people might be staying in one, and then 10 rooms are sharing one toilet and one bathroom. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about when you speak to the kids in the slum, the they cannot drain. Do you understand? You're speaking to a child, they're like, what do you want to become in future? And they tell you, I want to be a smuggler. I want to be I want to be a downfall driver. I want to be a if you went to the other side of town and you ask kids what do you want to be here, oh I want to be a developer, I want to be Elon Musk, I want to be an astronaut, right? I want to be a lecturer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a pilot. These kids don't even know that these things are possible, and that's because of their environment. So it's something I've always thought about. And as part of the social work I do, I go to these places and meet with them. I build a bond, start talking. They have my number, we can chat on WhatsApp. I forward them things that could help their mind. And when I'm sure that their minds are ready, now I move to the second stage, which is how can I help you? Right. And most times when people think of helping, they think of food, right? It's not food. It's the greatest help you can do is to deliver their minds, right? And then when you deliver their mind, they need resources. For instance, exam fees, 15,000 naira, 20,000 naira. They don't have it. If the father, the mother, the uncle, they're saying they still don't have. There are people who have never seen at once. Like they might have seen 2,000, but right? Young man, we're going to pay for your exam because this is your way out of here, right? There was a time I took some kids, took them on a bus, took them to the other side of town, took them to Ikuyi, Victoria Island, Lekki, showed them things, and they were like, wow, this is cool. They were like, wow, this is. I think we went to Banana Island to them. They were like, wow. I took them back home, and then all of them started saying, how can I help? I don't want to be here. Like, well, education. They're like, okay, now you learn, right? So it it's a gradual process. I must tell you, it's very slow. I don't think I've impacted that's a lot. What I'm trying to do, right, I'm trying to create a content expect where if I'm doing it and you're doing it, and I'm doing it and she's doing it, we're all doing it. Even if I do two people every year, we would have better results. So we always put this today who use chess to kind of push to what's possible. I remember I asked, how does it open? And he replied me next person. Great. So we just have to be creative now and see what we can do. Right. And so far I'm doing out pocket and I'm also like a lot of friends and family some money and they do to use. I also have a friend who is in the US who's able to get smartphone and can give smartphone to people. Like, some of the kids are learning how to, some of the kids are like call center job with the phone. Some of the kids are like doing taking pictures of their makeup with the phone and then they advertise it online. They advertise their goods. So it's just a phone. It's a 2015. Android phone that you don't want, but it's changing somebody's life. Yeah. Right. So yeah. So we're just doing things like that, and lives are actually being touched. And you see them 3, 4, 5 years from now. Some of them get scholarships to the US. Some of them, are working. Some of them even engage me on Twitter now. Yeah, like yeah, some of them are working like from Ajugunle to now they're like corporate guy, corporate girl. Yeah, I think it's
It's a really brilliant idea, and I think it's really noble of you. I try in my own small way to try to support individuals that are sort of like looking to make the next level in their career. So wherever they've started from. So I try to take people that have essentially finished college and they want to sort of access jobs. So with mentorship and with short term courses, medium term to long term courses. So with technology institutes like um Product Dive, Data Leon. There are a couple of them in Nigeria out there whereby I sort of partner with, or the institution that I sort of founded partners with, whereby we sort of have that relationship and we pay for this student to sort of have access to these courses and be able to sort of grow from there. And then we also try to incorporate mentorship into this. So with leaders, friends, and people that I know, acquaintances as well, that I can talk to say, you're already doing this data, you're a leader in this field. Can you mentor 1, 2, or 3 people? And he says, oh, I've got a group chat. I can sort of add them to it. I send them resources once per month and things of that nature, and I meet them up. And I find that this growth is sort of exponential, and it sort of helps people to sort of see this light. Now, I know that we're sort of running out of time, but I just had one final question for you, right? It's the year 2025 today. 10 years from now is going to be 2035. What do you hope that people would see in 2035?
I think this is interesting. So I think I would want to be in 2035. I want to be remembered for how I've been able to replicate myself in other people. It's part of what I do. It's like an annual mentorship I do. I want to have successfully replicated myself in people. I know we talk about, there's a skill gap, there's a knowledge gap. Yeah, there's a gap because we're not passing it down to the next generation. So I want to be able to do that. And I want to be able to do that en masse, where everybody who had first contact Cementi would be captains of industry, then top players, whether as entrepreneurs or as career people, or as business people. I think that's what I want to say about me in the next 10 years. But on a more personal level, I'm not sure. I don't think I've talked about anything personally. But yeah, I just think that impacts. And if the pipe that provides water can run dry, right? So I think that's where I'll leave.
I think it's very noble of you, and thank you very much for sharing that. Because really, like most of the time when we think about 10 years from now, it's always the idea that you sort of start to think you want to exponent, right? And I like the nobility in what you think is like recreating yourself, and not just yourself. It's really recreating the skills that you have in other people and watching them sort of blossom from there. So thank you very much, Cheryl. I really appreciate this conversation. And fun fact about this conversation is that Cheryl and I actually went to the same high school. So, and Cheryl was actually my senior in high school. And so this conversation only came to be because once I saw this going on, I was able to reach out to him personally, and we were able to set this up really quickly and sort of put this out there. Because at the end of the day, really, I think we have the same ethos in terms of how we see these things. And in terms of just changing one life, so even if this video sort of has one view, and that one view it can change that one life, I don't mind, and I'm sure Shewa doesn't mind as well, because it's more so like trying to make sure that other people actually see what the truth is and blocking out the noise. There's a lot of noise out there. Oh, people don't ever make it. 13% is a great number. And I'm sure that 13% does well. So change your mindset, change your belief, start to think in exponents, and try to use what you have within yourself. I think off camera, I did tell Shane about the story of a friend whereby he didn't have anything. All he knew was his sister was in a certain country, and all he did was try to just travel to that country. And now today he's able to exponent his own self. I don't know anyone that does content creation in New York right now that does not produce with his platform. Like, I don't know anyone that doesn't produce with his platform. That's how good he is at what he does. So be good at what you do, grow, network horizontally and vertically, network downwards as well. Do what you need to do, hone your advantages. Look, 80-20, 13%, whatever that number looks like to you, continue to hone that shit, because I'm sorry for swearing, but look, because no one is coming to save you. Nobody really coming to save you. But the truth is, if you put in the work, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, you would see the results and you will be so happy to have them. So thank you very much, Sean. Thank you so much for joining on short notice.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank
having
you
me. It
once
was
again.
great having these chats. And it's also good for me because I get to reinforce some of my thoughts. So thank you so much.
That was an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed myself, and I hope that you did too. Because your advantage isn't always something to hide, it's something you must always steward. So stop looking at your disadvantages and start looking at that thing that sort of moves you forward. A big thank you to Seun Adeola, who sort of granted us this interview on short notice. I hope that the clarity sort of gives you or propels you into your own truth and you start to hone your own story from today. Think about the story in the Bible where there were these servants that they were given different talents. That's the parable of the talents, whereby there was one given 5, one given 3 or 2, and then there was one given 1. And Jesus always said to the one that sort of multiplied, or the 2 that multiplied, he basically encouraged them. And the one that didn't multiply, he sort of had words for the person. Interestingly, we all have our own gifts. How are you choosing to own your own gifts? I hope this inspired you, and I hope this sort of helps you to think further as to what you want to do next. There's so much content on this channel, whether that's technology, AI, whatever that might look like. I hope this story inspires you to pick up your pen and paper and sort of put some things together. As your host, Tochi, I'll see you next time with another episode on the 80-20 podcast. Take care for now.